July 12th, Paris. I must have lost my head during the last few days. I must be the plaything of my enervated imagination, unless I really am a sleepwalker, or that I have been brought under the power of one of those influences which have been proved to exist, but which have hitherto been inexplicable, which are called suggestions. In any case, my mental state bordered on madness, and 24 hours of Paris sufficed to restore me to my equilibrium. Yesterday, after doing some business and paying some visits which instilled fresh and invigorating mental air into me, I wound up my evening at the Théâtre Français. A play by Alexandre Dumas the Younger was being acted, and his active and powerful mind completely cured me. Certainly solitude is dangerous for active minds. We require men who can think and can talk around us. When we are alone for a long time, we people space with phantoms. I returned along the boulevards to my hotel in excellent spirits. Amid the jostling of the crowd, I thought, not without irony, of my terrors and surmises of the previous week, because I believed, yes, I believed, that an invisible being lived beneath my roof. Oh, how weak our head is, and how quickly it is terrified and goes astray as soon as we are struck by a small, incomprehensible fact. Instead of concluding with these simple words, "I do not understand because the cause escapes me," we immediately imagine the terrible mysteries and supernatural powers. July 14th, Fate of the Republic. I walked through the streets and the firecrackers and flags amused me like a child. Still, it is very foolish to be merry on a fixed day, by government decree no less. The populace is an imbecile flock of sheep, now steadily patient, and now in ferocious revolt. Say to it, "Amuse yourself," and it amuses itself. Say to it, "Go and fight with your neighbor," and it goes and fights. Say to it, "Vote for the emperor," and it votes for the emperor. And then say to it, "Vote for the republic," and it votes for the republic. Those who direct it are also stupid, but instead of obeying men, they obey principles, which can only be stupid, sterile, and false, for the very reason that they are principles, that is to say, ideas which are considered as certain and unchangeable in this world where one is certain of nothing, since light is an illusion, and noise is an illusion. July 16th. I saw some things yesterday that troubled me very much. I was dining at my cousin's, Madame Sabel, whose husband is colonel of the 76th Chasseurs at Le Mans. There were two young women there, one of whom had married a medical man, Dr. Parent, who devotes himself a great deal to nervous diseases and the extraordinary manifestations to which at this moment experiments in hypnotism and suggestion give rise. He related to us at some length the enormous results obtained by English scientists and the doctors of the medical school at Nancy, and the facts which he adduced appeared to me so strange that I declared that I was altogether incredulous. "We are," he declared, "on the point of discovering one of the most important secrets of nature. I mean to say, one of its most important secrets on this earth, for there are certainly some of a different kind of importance up in the stars, yonder. Ever since man has thought, since he has been able to express and write down his thoughts, he has felt himself close to a mystery which is impenetrable to his coarse and imperfect senses, and he endeavors to supplement the want of power of his organs by the effort of his intellect. As long as that intellect still remained in its elementary stage, this intercourse with invisible spirits assumed forms which were commonplace, though terrifying. Thence sprang the popular belief in the supernatural, the legends of wandering spirits, of fairies, of gnomes, ghosts. I might even say the legend of God, for our conceptions of the work man-creator, from whatever religion they may have come down to us, are certainly the most mediocre, the stupidest, and the most unacceptable inventions that ever sprang from the frightened brain of any human creatures. Nothing is truer than what Voltaire says: God made man in his own image, but man has certainly paid him back again. But for rather more than a century, men seem to have found a presentiment of something new. Mesmer and some others have put us on an unexpected track, and especially within the last 2 or 3 years, we have arrived at really surprising results. My cousin, who is also very incredulous, smiled, and Dr. Parent said to her, "Would you like me to try and send you to sleep, madame?" "Yes, certainly." She sat down in an easy chair and he began to look at her fixedly, so as to fascinate her. I suddenly felt myself somewhat uncomfortable, a beating heart and a choking feeling in my throat. I saw that Madame Sibel's eyes were growing heavy. Her mouth twitched and her bosom heaved, and at the end of 10 minutes, she was asleep. "Stand behind her," the doctor said to me, and so I took a seat behind her. He put a visiting card into her hands and said to her, "This is a looking glass. What do you see in it?" And she replied, "I see my cousin." "What is he doing?" "He is twisting his mustache. And now, he is taking a photograph out of his pocket." "Whose photograph is it?" "His own." That was true, and that photograph had been given me that same evening at the hotel. "What is his attitude in the portrait?" "He is standing up with his hat in his hand." So she saw on that card, on that piece of white pasteboard, as if she had seen it in a looking glass. The young women were frightened and exclaimed, "That is quite enough, quite enough." But the doctor said to her authoritatively, "You will get up at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then you will go down and call on your cousin at his hotel and ask him to lend you 5,000 francs, which your husband demands of you, and which he will ask for when he sets out on his coming journey." Then he woke her up. On returning to my hotel, I thought over this curious séance, and I was assailed by doubts. Not as to my cousin's absolute and undoubted good faith, for I had known her as well as if she had been my own sister ever since she was a child, but as to a possible trick on the doctor's part. Had not he perhaps kept a glass hidden in his hand, which he showed to the young woman in her sleep, at the same time as he did the card? Professional conjurers do things which are just as singular. So I went home to bed, and this morning at about 8:30, I was awakened by my footman who said to me, "Madame Sibel has asked to see you immediately, monsieur." So I dressed hastily and went to her. She sat down in some agitation with her eyes on the floor, and without raising her veil she said to me, "My dear cousin, I am going to ask a great favor of you." "What is it, cousin?" "I do not like to tell you, and yet I must. I am in absolute want of 5,000 francs. "What? You?" "Yes, I, or rather my husband, who has asked me to procure them for him." I was so stupefied that I stammered out my answers. I asked myself whether she had not really been making fun of me with Dr. Parent, if it were not merely a very well-acted farce which had been got up beforehand. On looking at her attentively, however, my doubts disappeared. She was trembling with grief. So painful was this step to her, and I was sure that her throat was full of sobs. I knew that she was very rich, and so I continued, "What? Has not your husband 5,000 francs at his disposal? Come, think. Are you sure that he commissioned you to ask me for them?" She hesitated a few seconds, as if she were making a great effort to search her memory, and then she replied, Yes, I am quite sure of it. He has written you?" She hesitated again, and I guessed the torture of her thoughts. She did not know. She only knew that she was to borrow 5,000 francs of me for her husband, so she told a lie. Yes, he has written to me. When? Pray, you did not mention it to me yesterday. I received this letter this morning. Can you show it to me? No. It contained private matters, things too personal to ourselves. I burnt it. So your husband runs into debt? She hesitated again, and then murmured, I do not know. Thereupon I said bluntly, I have not 5,000 francs at my disposal at this moment, dear cousin. She uttered a cry, as if she were in pain, and said, Oh, I beseech you. I beseech you, get them for me. She got excited and clasped her hands as if she were praying to me. I heard her voice change in tone. She wept and stammered, harassed and dominated by the irresistible order that she had received. Oh, I beg you. If you knew what I am suffering. I want them today. I had pity on her. You shall have them by and by. I swear to you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. How kind you are. I continued. Do you remember what took place at your house last night? Yes. Do you remember that Dr. Perron sent you to sleep? Yes. Oh, very well. He ordered you to come to me this morning to borrow 5,000 francs, and at this moment you are obeying that suggestion. She considered for a few moments and then replied, But as it is my husband who wants them. For a whole hour I tried to convince her, but could not succeed. And when she had gone, I went to the doctor. He was just going out, and he listened to me with a smile and said, Do you believe now? Yes, I cannot help it. Let us go to your cousin's. She was already dozing on a couch, overcome with fatigue. The doctor felt her pulse, looked at her for some time with one hand raised toward her eyes, which she closed by degrees under the irresistible power of this influence. When she was asleep, he said, Your husband does not require the 5,000 francs any longer. You must, therefore, forget that you asked your cousin to lend them to you, and if he speaks to you about it, you will not understand him. Then he woke her up, and I took out a pocketbook and said, Here is what you asked me for this morning, my dear cousin. But she was so surprised that I did not venture to persist. Nevertheless, I tried to recall the circumstance to her, but she denied it vigorously, thought that I was making fun of her, and in the end, very nearly lost her temper. There. I have just come back, and I have not been able to eat my lunch, for this experiment has bothered me altogether. July 19th. Many people to whom I have told the adventure have laughed at me. I no longer know what to think. The wise man says, perhaps. July 21st. I dined at Bougival, and then I spent the evening at a boatman's ball. Decidedly, everything depends on place and surroundings. It would be the height of folly to believe in the supernatural on the Ile de la Grenouillère, but on the top of Mont Saint-Michel, and in India, we are terribly under the influence of our surroundings. I shall return home next week. July 30th. I came back to my own house yesterday. Everything is going well.